The end of my marriage didn't arrive with a thunderous bang or a tearful confession. It slithered into my bedroom in the dead of night, a venomous whisper from the lips of the woman I'd loved for 20 years. My wife Sarah was sound asleep beside me, her breath a warm and steady rhythm I had always found comforting. But then she shifted, a soft sigh escaping her, and murmured a name that wasn't mine. Marcus, it was spoken with a longing that froze the blood in my veins. My world, so carefully constructed, shattered in that single, devastating moment. My first instinct was pure, unadulterated rage. But as the initial shock subsided, a cold, chilling clarity took its place. She had made her choice. Now I had to make mine. You think you know how this story of betrayal ends, with screaming matches and slammed doors? Think again. What I uncovered next and what I chose to do with it changed everything. Before diving in, hit that subscribe button and comment below. Have you ever dealt with betrayal? Let's hear your stories. Part 1, The Hum of a Lie. For the better part of 2 decades, the soundtrack to my life was the quiet hum of contentment. It was the low thrum of the dishwasher finishing its cycle in our suburban kitchen, the gentle rustle of leaves in the old oak tree in our front yard, the soft breathing of my wife, Sarah, beside me in the dark. I was Mark, 48 years old, a project manager at a mid-level construction firm. My life was a blueprint I had followed meticulously: college, career, marriage, a daughter now in her first year of university. I was the reliable guy, the steady hand, the one who remembered to take out the recycling and always made sure Sarah's car had a full tank of gas. Our marriage, I thought, was built on the same solid foundation as the buildings I helped erect. But lately, a new sound had crept into the symphony of our lives, a discordant, almost imperceptible buzz of static. It was in the silences that stretched a little too long over dinner. It was in the way Sarah's phone, once casually tossed on the counter, was now perpetually screened down as if guarding state secrets. Sarah had always been ambitious. It was one of the things I first loved about her. While I was content with a stable 9-to-5 that paid the bills and allowed me to coach our daughter's soccer team, Sarah had a fire in her. Years ago, I'd switched to a less demanding role at my company, trading a corner office for more time at home so she could get her MBA. I never once regretted it. Seeing her walk across that stage, diploma in hand, was one of the proudest moments of my life. Her career had skyrocketed since. 6 months ago, she was promoted to Senior Vice President of Marketing at a trendy tech firm downtown. The promotion changed things. The late nights became more frequent, justified by launch deadlines and team meetings. The weekend work trips became a regular occurrence. I'd pack her suitcase, making a dumb joke about her remembering to bring me back something nice, and she'd give me a quick, distracted kiss on the cheek. "It's just for a little while, honey," she'd say, her eyes already focused on the emails pinging on her phone. "Once this product launch is over, things will calm down, I promise." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I'd make myself a solitary dinner, watch a game on TV, and push down the creeping loneliness. This was her time to shine, and my role was to be the supportive husband, but the static was getting louder. It was the new, expensive perfume that smelled of something exotic and exciting, a scent I'd never known her to wear. It was the way she'd laugh at a text message, then quickly clear her screen if I walked into the room. Her new boss, Marcus, was a frequent topic of conversation. "Marcus is a genius," she'd say. "He's so driven, so innovative." He was 10 years younger than us, a charismatic, sharp-dressed wunderkind who had apparently reinvented the wheel in digital marketing. I'd met him once at a company holiday party. He had a handshake that was a little too firm, eyes that lingered a little too long, and a smile that didn't quite reach them. He called me big guy and clapped me on the shoulder like we were old fraternity brothers. I didn't like him. I told myself it was just petty jealousy, the reflexive insecurity of a middle-aged man watching his wife be captivated by a younger, more dynamic personality. I was the comfortable old sweater. He was the tailored Italian suit. No competition, I needed to be more confident, I told myself. I needed to trust her. Part 2, A Whisper in the Dark. The night it all fell apart was aggressively, painfully normal. It was a Tuesday. We'd had dinner, microwaved leftovers because Sarah had gotten home late, again. We sat at the kitchen table, the silence punctuated only by the clinking of our forks. I tried to start a conversation about our daughter, Maya, and her classes. Sarah nodded along, but her focus was a million miles away. Her thumb was absently stroking the smooth glass of her phone beside her plate. Tired? I asked as we cleared the dishes. Exhausted, she sighed, rubbing her temples. Marcus is running us ragged, but it'll be worth it when we land the new European account. Marcus, always Marcus. Later in bed, she turned her back to me almost immediately, a gesture that had become her new normal. For years, we'd fall asleep tangled together. Now, a vast, cold expanse of mattress separated us. I lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, listening to that low hum of discontent that now seemed to fill every room of our house. Eventually, I drifted off into a shallow, restless sleep. It was the whisper that woke me. It wasn't a nightmare or a cry of distress. It was a soft, breathy murmur, thick with a kind of pleasure that I hadn't heard from her in years. I cracked my eyes open. The bedside clock read 2:17 a.m. Sarah was stirring beside me, caught in the throes of a dream. She sighed again, a sound of pure, unadulterated satisfaction, and then she said his name. Marcus, oh Marcus. The two words hung in the silent, dark room like a death sentence. My heart didn't just sink, it plummeted, a dead weight crashing through my chest and into the pit of my stomach. Every nerve in my body went rigid. I stopped breathing. The hum of the house, the ticking of the clock, my own pulse, everything went silent. There was only her voice, replaying in my head on an endless, torturous loop. It wasn't just a name, it was the way she said it. It was a whisper meant for a lover, intimate and raw. It was the sound of a secret desire confessed in the unguarded sanctuary of sleep. I lay there, paralyzed for what felt like hours. My body was a battlefield of warring impulses. One part of me wanted to shake her awake, to scream the name back in her face, to demand an explanation, to watch her perfect, curated world crumble under the weight of her betrayal. Another part wanted to get up, pack a bag, and just disappear, leaving her to wake up in an empty bed, a ghost in a life I no longer wanted a part of. But a third part, a colder, more patient part I didn't know existed, took over. It was a voice of chilling calm that cut through the roaring inferno of my emotions. It whispered, "Not yet, don't show your hand. If you know but she doesn't know you hold all the power." I slowly, carefully slid out of bed. My movements were robotic. I went to the guest bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me was a stranger, a pale, hollowed-out shell with eyes that burned with a grief so profound it felt ancient. The loyal husband was gone, the supportive partner had vanished. In his place stood someone else, someone forged in the icy fire of betrayal. I looked at the man in the mirror, and in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. The game had changed. She had been playing for months, maybe longer, but I was about to learn the rules and rewrite them completely. Part 3, The Anatomy of a Ghost. The next morning was an exercise in surreal self-control. I woke up before Sarah, went downstairs and made coffee, just like I did every other day. The familiar routine felt alien, like I was an actor playing the part of a man whose life hadn't been irrevocably destroyed a few hours earlier. When Sarah came down, dressed in a sharp blazer and pencil skirt, she looked refreshed, radiant even. The glow of her dream, or perhaps the memory that inspired it, still clung to her. The irony was a physical blow. "Morning," she said, giving me a quick peck on the cheek as she reached for the coffee pot. Her lips were cool, her perfume, that new, unfamiliar scent, wafted around her. I felt a wave of nausea. "Morning," I replied, my voice sounding unnervingly normal. "Big day today." "Always," she smiled. "Marcus is presenting the new campaign strategy to the board. It's a huge deal." I just nodded, stirring my coffee, the spoon clinking against the ceramic like a countdown clock. Every mention of his name was a fresh twist of the knife. I watched her, really watched her, for the first time in a long time. I was no longer seeing my wife, I was studying an adversary. I was searching for the ghost of her affair, and now that I knew what to look for, I saw it everywhere. It was in the subtle tilt of her body away from me, the slight recoil when my hand brushed hers. It was in the obsessive way she guarded her phone, angling the screen away even when she was just scrolling through social media. It was in the vague, evasive answers about her day. "Oh, meetings and spreadsheets, the usual. What a joke. That day I worked from home, but I didn't work." I sat in my home office, the door closed, and became a ghost hunter. I sifted through the memories of the past year, re-examining every late night, every business trip, every odd moment through the lens of my new, terrible knowledge. The pieces snapped together with horrifying clarity. The girl's weekend in Napa that she came back from with a tan line on her ring finger, which she'd claimed she took off to get a massage. The time I'd called her hotel room during a conference in Chicago, and a man's voice had answered before abruptly hanging up. She decalled me back seconds later, laughing it off as a mix-up at the front desk. "They must have connected you to the wrong room, silly." At the time, I'd felt a flicker of suspicion, a tiny, uncomfortable prickle, but I had extinguished it immediately. Trust, I had told myself, trust is the foundation. Now I realized our foundation wasn't stone, it was sand, and it had been washing away for a long time. My internal turmoil was a raging sea. Waves of white-hot anger crashed against shores of profound, bottomless grief. I wanted to smash things. I wanted to call her and scream until my throat was raw. But beneath the rage, there was a deeper, more agonizing feeling, self-doubt. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? Did I become boring? The questions were a relentless assault. I remembered our early years, the frantic passion, the late-night talks, the way we could spend a whole weekend in bed, talking, laughing, making love, feeling like we were the only two people in the universe. Where did that man go? The husband who would surprise her with flowers for no reason, who would write her silly poems, who looked at her like she hung the moon. He'd been replaced by a comfortable, predictable roommate who paid the mortgage on time. Had my complacency pushed her into another man's arms? A part of me wanted to believe that, to take some of the blame, because that would have made it a shared failure, a problem to be fixed, but then the cold, hard logic returned. My complacency didn't force her to lie. My predictability didn't make her whisper another man's name in her sleep. That was her choice, all her. The debate raged inside me, confront her and have it out, or bide my time and gather irrefutable proof. Confrontation would bring catharsis, an explosion of pain that might, just might, be followed by remorse and rebuilding. But the calculating voice from the night before whispered again, "A confession under duress is worthless. You need the truth, the whole truth, and people only reveal the whole truth when they don't know they're being watched." Part 4, The Gaslighter's Gambit. I decided to test the waters, a small, calculated probe to see how she would react. That evening, as we were cleaning up after another quiet dinner, I leaned against the counter, affecting a casual air. "You know," I began, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "I was thinking about that company banquet coming up. It'll be nice to see everyone. You seem to be spending a lot of time with your team lately." "Especially with Marcus," I said his name calmly, neutrally, watching for a reaction. It came instantly, her posture stiffened. She stopped scrubbing a plate and placed it carefully in the sink, her movements precise and controlled. She turned to face me, and her eyes, which used to hold such warmth, were now chips of ice. "What's that supposed to mean, Mark?" Her voice was low, dangerously quiet. "Nothing," I said, holding up my hands in mock surrender. "Just an observation. You guys seem to have a good working relationship." "A good working relationship. He's my boss. We're launching a global campaign. Of course we're spending a lot of time together." "It's called having a career." She dried her hands, her knuckles white. "Are you accusing me of something?" There it was, the classic deflection, the preemptive strike. "No, of course not," I said, forcing a placating smile. "I'm proud of you. I'm just saying I miss you around here sometimes." Her expression softened, but it was a calculated shift. The ice melted into a look of weary condescension. It was a performance, and a damn good one. "Oh, Mark," she sighed, stepping forward to fix the collar on my shirt, a gesture that felt more like a correction than an intimacy. "I know this has been hard. My schedule has been insane, but all this, it's for us, for our future. After everything I do for this family, for this life we have, the last thing I need is to be interrogated because I'm working hard." She framed it as my insecurity, my inability to handle her success. "I didn't realize my ambition was such a threat to your ego." The gaslighting was so masterful, so complete, that for a split second I almost believed her. I almost apologized. The old Mark would have. He would have backed down, placated her, and blamed his own insecurity. But the old Mark was dead. I looked into her eyes and saw not my wife, but a stranger who had perfected the art of deception. She was painting me as the villain, the jealous, unsupportive husband holding her back. And in that moment, any lingering hope for a tearful confession, for reconciliation, for saving what we had, evaporated. My path forward was no longer cloudy. It was crystal clear. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was trying to make me believe I was crazy for even suspecting it. There would be no mercy. Part 5, The Digital Breadcrumbs. The next few days, I became a digital archaeologist, excavating the ruins of my marriage. It was a sordid, soul-crushing endeavor, and I hated the man it was turning me into, a skulking, paranoid spy in my own home. But it was necessary. Her gaslighting had lit a fire under me. I wasn't just looking for proof anymore, I was building a case. My first breakthrough came from the most mundane of sources, the family iPad. It was the device we used for recipes, for booking vacations, for Maya to FaceTime us from college. It was logged into Sarah's cloud account, a digital hub she had clearly forgotten about. It was a rookie mistake. I waited until she was in the shower, the sound of running water masking the frantic tapping of my fingers. I opened the photo app. At first, it was just the usual stuff, pictures of our dog, screenshots of recipes, photos of Maya. But as I scrolled back months, my blood ran cold. There they were, tucked away in a hidden album that wasn't very hidden at all. It wasn't just one or two pictures, it was a gallery of their affair. A selfie of Sarah and Marcus at a winery, her head resting on his shoulder, a blissful, carefree smile on her face I hadn't seen in years. A picture of two champagne glasses clinking together, with a hotel balcony overlooking a city skyline in the background, the skyline of Chicago. Another of their hands intertwined on the table of a cozy-looking restaurant. Each photo was a gut punch, stealing the air from my lungs. This wasn't a fleeting mistake. This was a relationship, a parallel life she was living. Then I found the messages. The cloud had synced not just her photos, but her texts. I scrolled, my hands shaking. Marcus, can't stop thinking about last night. Sarah, me neither. The way you looked at me during that presentation, I almost melted. Marcus, this meeting is so boring. Wish I was back in that hotel room with you. Sarah, don't, you're going to get me in trouble. I'm sitting here smiling like an idiot. Marcus, my wife is asking about the late nights, getting suspicious. Sarah, tell her you're mentoring your star SVP. Winking face, it's not even a lie. The winking emoji felt like a drop of poison. They were joking about it, joking about me, about his wife. The sheer arrogance of it was breathtaking. I screenshotted everything, my mind working with a cold, methodical precision. Every text, every photo, every hotel receipt I found in her synced email. I saved them to a secure cloud drive of my own, a digital war chest. The man I was, the one who believed in the sanctity of privacy, who trusted his wife implicitly, watched this new version of himself with a kind of detached horror. But the hurt was so deep, it had cauterized itself. The pain was still there, a dull, constant ache, but it was now overlaid with a layer of ice. The sadness had morphed into a quiet, simmering rage. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. This was about justice. This was about taking back the narrative she had so carefully crafted, the one where she was the high-flying career woman and I was the sad, insecure husband. The truth was a weapon, and I was going to sharpen it to a razor's edge. Part 6, An Unlikely Alliance. Carrying the weight of this knowledge alone was crushing me. I was becoming a ghost in my own life, going through the motions, the unspoken truth, a toxic presence between me and Sarah. I needed an ally, a confidant, someone who could see the situation clearly without the fog of 20 years of shared history. My younger sister, Chloe, came to visit that weekend. Chloe was a divorce lawyer. Sharp, sarcastic, and fiercely loyal, she had a built-in bullshit detector that was second to none. She took one look at me when she walked in the door and knew something was wrong. "Good God, Mark," she said, dropping her bag. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What's going on?" We sat at the kitchen table after Sarah had conveniently gone out for a run that I knew was likely a phone call with Marcus. I hesitated for a moment, the shame and humiliation making the words stick in my throat. Then it all came pouring out, the whisper in the night, the gaslighting, the photos, the texts. I pulled out my phone and showed her the evidence. Chloe scrolled through the screenshots, her expression hardening from concern to pure, unadulterated fury. When she looked up, her eyes were blazing. That absolute, she bit off the word, her legal training kicking in. Okay. First things first, have you spoken to a lawyer? You're the first person I've told, I confessed. Good, she said, her voice all business now. Listen to me, Mark. The part of you that wants to scream and yell and throw her things on the lawn, muzzle it. The part of you that feels guilty, like you did something to deserve this, drown it. Right now, we are not emotional, we are strategic. Her words were like a splash of ice water, shocking me out of my grief-stricken haze. This isn't just an affair, she continued, pacing the kitchen. This is a breach of contract. But more than that, it's a professional liability for them. He's her superior. Their company must have a policy on this. This is a bomb, and we are going to decide exactly when and where it goes off for maximum impact. She pulled out her laptop. You guys signed a prenup, right? Your father-in-law insisted. I'd forgotten all about it. Yeah, 20 years ago, I don't even know where it is. Find it, she commanded. There might be an infidelity clause, old-fashioned, but you never know. We need every piece of leverage we can get. Don't just get mad, Mark, get everything. Over the next 2 hours, my sister became my general. We mapped out a strategy. We wouldn't just expose the affair. We would dismantle the professional pedestal they had built their lies upon. The initial plan was a quiet, surgical strike, present the evidence to a lawyer, file for divorce, let it play out behind closed doors. But then I told her about the upcoming annual Corporate Leadership Awards banquet. Wait a minute, she said, a slow, wicked grin spreading across her face. You said she's presenting him with an award. Leader of the Year, I said, the words tasting like ash. Chloe leaned back in her chair, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Oh, that is just too perfect. That's our venue. Public, professional, and utterly humiliating. We're going to turn her tribute into his eulogy. For the first time in weeks, a genuine, if dark, smile touched my lips. The rage was still there, as was the pain. But now they were joined by something new, a sense of purpose. My sister's alliance had given me strength. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a man with a plan. Part 7, setting the stage. The 2 weeks leading up to the awards banquet were the longest of my life. I lived a double life, playing the part of the oblivious, supportive husband while, in secret, Chloe and I orchestrated our endgame. I found the prenup, and just as Chloe had hoped, it contained a tightly worded infidelity clause that would have significant financial ramifications. It was another arrow in our quiver. Sarah was blissfully unaware, wrapped up in the excitement of the upcoming event. She bought a new dress, a shimmering, backless number that she modeled for me one evening. What do you think? She asked, twirling in front of the bedroom mirror. Is it too much? Yes, I thought you are too much. You look beautiful, I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. She was also busy writing her speech for Marcus's award presentation. I'd watch her sitting at her desk, a pensive look on her face as she typed, occasionally smiling to herself. I imagined what she was writing, a flowery tribute to his vision, his leadership, his mentorship. The hypocrisy was staggering. She was crafting a public love letter to her lover, and she expected me to sit in the audience and applaud. My role in the plan was simple but required nerves of steel. Chloe, using her legal savvy and a friend who worked in corporate IT, found a way. The banquet presentations were all run from a central laptop managed by the event's AV team. The slideshow for Marcus's award, a boring loop of corporate headshots and inspirational quotes, was already loaded. Our mission was to replace it. The day before the event, under the pretense of dropping off a dress for dry cleaning near her office, I ran into the AV tech who was setting up in the hotel ballroom. He was a young, frazzled kid named Kevin. I feigned a crisis. Hey man, you look like you know what you're doing, I started, employing my best helpless older guy act. My wife is presenting an award tomorrow, and she just realized she sent the wrong version of the slideshow. There's a typo in the CEO's name. She's in a board meeting and freaking out. Is there any way I could give you the updated file on a flash drive? You'd be saving my life and probably my marriage. I gave him a conspiratorial wink. Kevin, eager to be a hero and avoid any corporate drama, happily agreed. He took the flash drive, which Chloe had triple-checked was free of viruses and contained only a single PowerPoint file. He dragged it onto the presentation laptop, replacing the old file. All set, he said. Tell your wife not to worry. You're a lifesaver, Kevin, I said, shaking his hand and slipping him $100 bill for your trouble. I walked out of that hotel ballroom feeling a strange mix of exhilaration and dread. The trap was set. The bait was in place. All that was left was for the targets to walk into it. That night, I barely slept. I lay beside Sarah, listening to her steady breathing, and felt a pang of something that almost resembled grief for the woman I thought she was, and for the man I used to be. Tomorrow, both would be gone forever. Part 8: The Presentation of a Lifetime. The night of the banquet arrived with the electric hum of a brewing thunderstorm. The hotel ballroom was a sea of black ties and glittering gowns. We were seated at a prime table near the front, along with some of Sarah's colleagues and their spouses. Sarah was radiant, a picture of success, greeting everyone with warm smiles and air kisses. She squeezed my hand under the table. Nervous, she whispered. A little, I lied. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs, but my face was a mask of placid spousal support. I scanned the room. Marcus was at the head table, holding court, his arm resting possessively on the back of his wife's chair. She was a pretty, unassuming woman who looked at him with open adoration. A fresh wave of disgust washed over me. The dinner dragged on, speeches were made, lesser awards were given out. Finally, the moment arrived. The CEO stepped to the podium. And now, to present our most prestigious award, Leader of the Year, I'd like to invite to the stage our Senior Vice President of Marketing, Sarah Collins. The room erupted in applause. Sarah gave my hand another squeeze, stood up, and glided toward the stage, a vision in her shimmering dress. She was in her element, confident and powerful. She took the podium, the large screen behind her displaying a professional title card with Marcus's smiling face. "Good evening," she began, her voice smooth and practiced. "To lead is not just to manage, it's to inspire. It's to see potential in people they don't see in themselves. It's to cultivate an environment where creativity and passion can flourish." She spoke for several minutes, her words a carefully constructed homage. I watched Marcus. He was beaming, soaking in the praise, his ego inflating with every syllable. His wife was looking at him with tears of pride in her eyes. "He's a mentor, a visionary, and a friend," Sarah continued, her voice catching with emotion. "It is my profound honor to present the Leader of the Year award to a man who has not only transformed our company, but has transformed me. Please join me in congratulating Marcus Thorne." As the applause began to swell, she turned toward the wings of the stage where Marcus was rising from his seat. This was the cue, and then it happened. The screen behind her flickered. Marcus's corporate headshot vanished. In its place, a new image appeared, filling the 10-foot screen in glorious high definition. It was the selfie from the winery. Sarah and Marcus, head on his shoulder, his arm wrapped tightly around her. A confused murmur rippled through the audience. Sarah, her back to the screen, hadn't seen it yet. She was smiling, holding the heavy glass award, waiting for Marcus to join her. Then the slide changed. It was a screenshot of a text message, blown up for all to see. "Marcus, can't stop thinking about last night. Sarah, me neither. The way you looked at me during that presentation, I almost melted." A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. The applause died instantly, replaced by a stunned, deafening silence. Sarah's smile faltered. She sensed the shift in the room's energy and glanced nervously behind her. I watched her face as she saw the image, the color drained from it. Her eyes widened in pure, unadulterated horror. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The slideshow continued its silent, brutal assault. The photo of the clinking champagne glasses in the Chicago hotel room. The text about his wife getting suspicious. The text with the winking emoji. Each image was a nail in their professional and personal coffins. Marcus had frozen halfway to the stage, his face a mask of disbelief and panic. His wife was staring at the screen, her hand flying to her mouth, her face crumpling in heartbreak. The CEO looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. The final slide was the simplest and most damning. It was a picture of their intertwined hands on the restaurant table. Beneath it, in large, simple text, were the words, "Congratulations on your leadership." Part 9: The Fallout and the Silence. In the pandemonium that followed, I did nothing. I didn't shout, I didn't cheer, I didn't make a scene. My revenge was not loud, it was silent and absolute. As a cacophony of hushed, frantic whispers filled the ballroom, I simply stood up. I adjusted the lapels of my suit. My eyes met Sarah's across the room. She was still on stage, paralyzed, the award clutched in her hand like a lead weight. Her face was a canvas of shame, terror, and a dawning understanding. She was looking at me, pleading with her eyes, but she wasn't seeing the man she married. She was seeing the man who had just systematically dismantled her entire world without uttering a single word. I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. It was a gesture of finality, a quiet checkmate. Then I turned and walked out. I didn't run. I walked calmly through the crowd of stunned executives and their partners, my back straight, my head held high. I could feel their eyes on me, a mixture of pity, morbid curiosity, and from some, a flicker of what looked like respect. I didn't look back. The aftermath, as Chloe later recounted it to me, was pure chaos. Marcus's wife reportedly threw a glass of water in his face before storming out. The CEO had security escort both Sarah and Marcus out through a back exit. The event ended abruptly. I didn't go home. I went to a hotel Chloe had booked for me. I turned off my phone, ran a hot shower, and stood under the scalding water until the steam filled the room, washing away the grime of the past few weeks. There was no elation, no triumphant joy. Just a profound, hollow sense of release. The pressure that had been building inside me for weeks was finally gone, leaving behind a quiet, echoing emptiness. The revenge hadn't healed me, but it had cauterized the wound. It had reclaimed my dignity. I hadn't lowered myself to screaming or begging. I had simply held up a mirror and forced them to look at their own reflections. They had built their careers on image and perception. I had used that very stage to reveal the ugly truth beneath the polished veneer. The silence of my exit was louder and more powerful than any accusation I could have ever screamed. I left them in the wreckage they had created, to be judged by the very people they had worked so hard to impress. Part 10, A Different Kind of Sunrise. The days that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and necessary endings. Chloe was a shark, using the public humiliation and the infidelity clause in the prenup to negotiate a swift and favorable divorce settlement. Sarah didn't fight it. She was broken. She lost her job, her reputation, and her marriage in one spectacular flameout. Marcus was demoted and transferred to an obscure branch in another state, his career permanently tarnished. His wife filed for divorce the next day. I sold the house, the one filled with 2 decades of memories that were now tainted. I packed up the few things that mattered, photos of Maya, old books, the guitar I hadn't played in years, and moved into a small apartment downtown. For a while, I just existed. I grieved for the marriage I thought I had, for the future I had envisioned. But slowly, mercifully, the grief began to recede. The quiet emptiness in my apartment began to feel less like a void and more like open space, a blank canvas. I started filling it with new things. I picked up my guitar again, the calluses on my fingertips a welcome, familiar sting. I took a cooking class. I started hiking on the weekends, exploring the trails outside the city, feeling the sun on my face and the solid earth beneath my feet. I reconnected with myself, the man who had been sublimated for years under the title of supportive husband. I realized that in my quiet complacency, I had lost parts of myself. Her betrayal, as devastating as it was, had been a violent, necessary catalyst for my own rediscovery. One Saturday morning, about 6 months after the banquet, I drove out to the coast before dawn. I sat on the cool sand, my coffee flask warming my hands, and watched the sun begin to creep over the horizon. The sky bled from inky black to deep purple, then to fiery orange and soft pink. As the first rays of light warmed my face, I thought about Sarah. I didn't feel anger anymore, or even sadness. I felt a distant, detached pity for a woman who had sought validation in all the wrong places, who had traded a solid foundation for a fleeting thrill. I thought about whether I could have done things differently, been a more attentive husband, perhaps. But I also knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that her choices were her own, and my future was now my own. The sun broke free from the horizon, flooding the world with new light. It wasn't a magical cure. The scars were still there, but for the first time they didn't ache. They were just a part of my story, a reminder of the man I used to be and the man I was becoming. I took a deep breath of the salty air, stood up, and walked back toward my car. I didn't know what was next, but for the first time in a very long time, that felt less like a fear and more like a promise. It was a different kind of sunrise, and it was all mine. If this story hit home, like and subscribe for more gripping tales of love and betrayal. The sting of infidelity is a universal theme, and the paths to healing are many. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you forgive or seek revenge? What do you think Mark should do next? Your engagement helps build this community. Check out the next video popping up now for another twist-filled saga.